Welcome to this episode of the Drink Less, Feel Fresh Mondays podcast series. Tommy Cartwright here, founder of Drink Less, Feel Fresh, accompanied by the very talented and well-dressed,
terribly attractive,
and terribly attractive head of program design and lead behavioral specialist at Drink Less, Feel Fresh, Nat Hodges. Nat, how you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, mate. I'm very well.
Good.
Now, looking forward to diving into today. I kind of want to hit the ground running rather than catching up. You and I can catch up a little bit later. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Now, there's been a common theme in our Drink Less, Feel Fresh membership community, and you know that, a lot of people know, if you're listening to this, it might have already started, but a lot of people know our 30-day detox challenge starts tonight, 6:30 p.m. Mm-hmm. Got around 30 to 40 people doing that with us, so I'm absolutely pumped. But the reason why I share that with our listeners is because there's been a common theme of question that people have been asking me this week. Yeah. And I kind of wanted to explore it today because I think it's really, really beneficial. And the reason being is
no, you cannot drink on a detox.
Podcast done. Mate, well, look, I think what we're about to discuss looks after one of the most common or biggest problems in the traditional alcohol reduction industry. That is the whole, I'm going to use the word relapse.
Relapse.
It's a huge problem in the industry, is individuals not knowing how to navigate we call them slip-ups, like a slip-up. And we don't mean a slip-up as in you had a drink. We mean a slip-up as in you drank a level that got you to end up feeling guilty about yourself. You drank to the extent where you didn't enjoy what you did. And so I've been sharing, I've had a few conversations. In fact, we brought it into the Saturday live Q&A, and I dove really deep for about 45 minutes into this and the art of how to manage slip-ups in a really beautiful way. And the team loved it. So that's why I wanted to bring it to today's call, if that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Cracker.
Mate, I'm just going to share, and then if it's okay, I would like you to share. I'm going to ask you to come in probably 5 to 7 minutes and share a couple of your insights, if that's cool.
Sweet. Do you think?
If you're listening to this now and you've either started an alcohol reduction journey and you give yourself a hard time or you really struggle when you overconsume alcohol, or if you haven't started an alcohol reduction journey or a detox because you're afraid that you're going to slip up, which is such a big thing we hear. Oh, I don't know if I can do a 30-day detox because I'm going to slip up. And what that language actually suggests to us is that you have what I'm going to language an inappropriate fear due to what the culture and the tribe have set you up for, which means it's actually quite inappropriate to assume that you're going to crush it. It's like getting into business and saying to yourself, well, I know the business is going to succeed without a doubt. I'm not going to slip up. I'm not going to have any troubles. I'm not going to have troubles paying the bills in the first few weeks. It's all going to be perfect. I'm going to operate like a 20-year business owner in my first month. No one speaks like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's just willing to figure it out. Everyone's just like, cool, we'll just go figure it out. Similar in a relationship. Few people get into a relationship and during date 1, they're looking across the table going, yeah, I'll have date 2 because I know this is going to last for 5 to 7 years.
This is going to be great.
Then I'm going to propose. Then we're going to have a family. Then we're going to have kids. We don't approach many things like that. But when it comes to the traditional alcohol reduction industry, there's this huge heavy fog of what happens when you slip up. And what I've been sharing with the community is, really the science or the psychology behind, there's a lot of quotes out there, like you have to fail to succeed and failing is just failing forward. And but no one really understands what that means. So I wanted to dive into it today. I'm going to share it like this. If you constantly judge your alcohol reduction success based on a system that someone's told you to follow, you're going to be relying on that system, right? And what I mean by that is if you experience a 30-day detox because you were told to do a 30-day detox by your mentor, by your GP, by the clinical industry, because a rehabilitation clinic told you to do it, if you slip up, which means you break the rules, so to speak, and you drink, chances are you'll start beating yourself up and what I call disciplining yourself based on the fact that you broke the rules. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And that's a huge problem Because if you discipline yourself based on a result that you experienced, I say it like this to be, we've kind of spoken about it in a different context now. You remove the secret ingredient of life, which is hindsight. And there's a lot of people that have slipped up 20, 30, 40 times and don't feel any further along the journey at all. And that there's something wrong with that, right? Like there is something wrong with that. So what I would like you to share, Nat, is on the live Q&A on Saturday, a couple of the members said, well, Tom, if I don't discipline myself based off, I was doing a challenge and I broke the rules, I'm a bad person, I've made a mistake, so I'm going to drink copious amounts for a few days and beat myself up. They said this a few times. They said, well, what's the alternative? And what I shared is, and what I'd like you to share on here is, I shared the alternative is to listen to your internal moral compass that you're not only clarifying, that you're learning to trust. Excuse me. And they said, what's the difference? And I said, well, if you are attempting to crush a 30-day challenge, or if you are attempting to change your relationship with alcohol and you have a slip up and you start disciplining yourself in really an really unfortunate way, which is just drink more alcohol or feel crap for 24, 48 hours, which doesn't help anyone. You're missing the key part of the recipe, which is, what do you actually want to be doing? What's working for you? What's not working for you? And in my professional opinion, you're almost like you're trying to get around hindsight. You're trying to get around the lessons and the learnings of what you actually want to be doing. Yeah, that's it. And what I wanted you to share on specifically, Nat, is what are the benefits of listening to your internal guiding compass, listening to your moral compass, listening to your approach? Because, from what we've seen over the past 7 years doing this at Drink Less, Feel Fresh, is that individuals generally have a much stronger guiding compass and ability to lead themselves through life than we could ever teach them. It's just our job to help them get there. And if you just never drink for the rest of your life, it's not that that's not a great thing. That's fantastic. But my question is, where have you learned the insights on what it looks like to struggle, to fall down, to get back up? Where have you learned how to create a relationship with alcohol that you respect because you chose that it was no longer good for you, as opposed to somebody telling you that? And so what I specifically want you to share on that is, and you've shared a bit in a few of our masterclasses, is probably two things, Nat. Number one, what does it look like to create a kind of internal guidance system within you? And how and what are the benefits of actually using slip-ups, failures, struggles, hurdles, obstacles, and sitting and listening and learning through what we call, or what everybody's known as hindsight, which is such a beautiful thing in life that you can't get around. Could you share a little bit on that?
Yeah. The first avenue we'll approach here is understanding the conscience itself. It's a very it's an odd one, because when you start talking about conscience, I ask groups of people, does everyone know what I mean when I say conscience? Everyone puts their hand up. It's that little voice in your head. But no one's taught us that. No one's sat down and said, oh, time to do the lesson on conscience. We all inherently know it. Now, the thing is with the conscience, that is your moral compass. It's the thing inside you. What does that even mean? Well, it's the thing inside you pointing you towards what's most meaningful for you. It actually has a psychological function. It's not just this
Can you say that
feeling.
Sorry, Nat, can you say that again? Conscience is...
Conscience is... it's our moral compass, but it's not a generalized morality, as in what's good, what's bad. It is your compass that's pointing you towards your most meaningful things in life. Okay, so that's a massive thing. To understand what's most valuable to you is huge. Well, then it's not going to be really, really loud and clear off the bat. These things are conscience is covered with all these beliefs and ideals, and when you say people start a detox and just expect to crush it, that is a ideal that's covering the conscience. It's a false ideal. And so when we are first understanding this moral compass, the first thing you got to realize is that it's not going to tell you what to do. It's going to whisper to you what not to do. That's the first understanding. It's not going to tell you, hey, do this, do that. It's going to whisper very, very quietly, hey, don't do that. And if you're not quiet enough, first of all, you won't hear it. If you're trying with all these ideas, you're not going to hear it. And if you don't follow, this is a thing when people feel guilty on a detox because they've had a couple of drinks, it's not, this is where you by hindsight. It's not I feel guilty because I've had a drink. It's I'm feeling guilt because deep in my conscience I knew I shouldn't have, but I did it anyway. So
Beautiful.
you're not following the conscience. It's not the behavior. The behavior is always downstream. Behavior is always downstream. If you can just understand that, like, yeah, I missed that. I heard myself say I probably shouldn't do that. Why didn't I trust that?
Now, let me know if I'm off because I love what you're sharing here. But I was speaking with one of our amazing private one-on-one clients that you and I serve and look after earlier in the weekend. And now that you're saying that, she said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to do this 30-day detox." I said, "That's fantastic, great. What's different?" And she actually said something along the lines of this. Well, normally I'd give myself such a hard time if I drank during a detox, but it was only the other weekend I woke up after I'd had a couple of drinks and I realized I'm not annoyed because I drank last night.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed because I've missed out on these sunrises.
Bingo.
I'm annoyed because I've just wanted to make the most of the mornings. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
That's exactly right. Our conscience is not clean. You can't just tap into it and listen to it and your life's sorted. You've got to do the work to understand why it's not very clean, why it's not very loud, and why you should even bloody trust it in the first place. Like, that's a good question. Why should you even trust your conscience? That little thing that says, hey, probably don't do that. Why should you even trust that? And so this is where yeah.
Now, let me know if you're similar or not regarding either the gym or health or businesses earlier in the days. Like I had a huge level of disrespect towards my conscious mind for a long time. It was almost
Absolutely.
like I ran a rebellion strategy. It was like, Tom, don't do that. I was like, yeah, if I can show you.
I'll show you. Exactly.
And I think that's a bit of a common experience for people, isn't it? Or it's either rebellion or I just don't trust that it will look after me.
Yep. Exactly right. And that's the first when I'm working with people at this level, the first thing I ask them to do all the time is just say, look, it's going to tell you what not to do. And when it tells you not to do something, don't do it. Follow your conscience. If you want to go to the bottle shop and it says, hey, you probably shouldn't do this, don't go to the bottle shop as an experiment and feel what it's like in your own body, feel what it's like in your own mind to actually align yourself to an inner voice that is not a voice of your own will. It's coming from somewhere else. And that's the unique quality of the conscience, is it comes from somewhere else. It's not your own conscious will saying don't do that. There's something else in you. The still small voice within that never goes away.
Now, what I'm picking up on here, I never have before, but the very subtle detail here, which is what I think you're suggesting, is the noticing the power that your conscious will not tell you what to do. It'll just tell you what not to do. Yeah. And that sounds really, really deeply helpful because it's so freeing. It's not, I'm going to tell you what to do with your life and restrict you.
No.
I'm going to tell you what not to do so you're not restricted in life.
Exactly. And what ends up happening over time is, if you think about this, if you think about it from a model of life, if you are dead set focused on just listening on what not to do, what ends up happening over time is it aligns you to your perfect path, because you go, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And this beautiful individualistic path literally unveils itself in front of you, because what's left over is the perfect thing for you.
Say it again. Say it one more time. That's so good. It just sums up life in itself.
Yeah. If you commit to understanding the conscience, where it's only going to tell you what not to do, you get all the freedom in the world, because you go, I can do anything but that one thing. I can do anything but that one thing. Toddle on a bit more. Oh, I can't do that. I can do anything but that one thing. And then everything that you do that's not that thing is going to push you forward. It's actually easier. It's so much easier. We are not designed to know what to do. We are not designed to know what to do. We're designed to figure out what not to do and choose anything else. If you do that for enough time, there is a funny little development, Tommy. There is a really crazy development that if you live following the conscience, you'll realize you'll have an extremely ethical life. Like, you'll be very happy and you'll be very aligned. The development that happens is, with enough time, the conscience switches from telling you what not to do, and then it starts telling you what to do. So it actually shifts in deeper development, and then it literally tells you what to do. It literally tells you, it can tell you what to say in a moment. Like, it becomes so autonomous and so healthy and so vibrant that it grabs a hold of meaning and forces you down there. It's epic.
It sounds like you're kind of really talking about someone, how do I say it in layman's terms? Someone in alignment, or someone
Total
living
alignment.
in the moment, someone living
Yep.
in, or coming from a deep place of trust.
Yeah.
It's interesting,
Exactly
isn't it?
right.
Like, I'm just going to reverse a little bit here, or look at it a different way for some new potential members that are listening on YouTube or Spotify. It's almost like, not, I'm sorry to break it down so effortless, like easily, but I'm like, so one way is we disrespect our conscious mind and the little don't do's, and we disrespect it, which leads to behavioral patterns that we second guess, doubt, and feel guilty for, which
Bingo.
again, if we learn from them, is another way, in my mind, our conscious mind is looking after us.
Bingo. Exactly right.
If we didn't
Exactly right.
feel guilty, if we didn't feel negative repercussions, it'll just be, would we keep doing it?
Yeah, psychopath. That's literally definition of psychopath.
Yeah, there we go. And right now, this is the juiciness I was so excited to have today, Nat, that so many people need to hear, is the difference between saying, I'm going to go sober the rest of my life and never drink again, or like many of our 95%, 98% of our Drink Less Feel Fresh members who go, I'm going to aim for alcohol reduction. I'm going to detox from time to time. I'm going to consume some alcohol from time to time. And the minute I feel the negative consequence from it, as opposed to giving myself a hard time, I'm going to analyze, look at, reevaluate. And what have we noticed that's happened in the past 4 to 7 years? We've just noticed. I said this again to my beautiful wife, Jamie Lee. She said, how's the detox going? I go, it's great. How good's this? I know that these 30, 40 people doing this detox in a year's time from now, their alcohol intake levels are going to be so much less. Yep. And Jamie, and my beautiful wife was like, how do you know that? And I'm like, because this approach works. If you beat yourself up because you slipped up, every year for 10 years, you'll experience some success, then you'll slip up, and then you'll fall into the trap of, I'm back at square one. Of course, you're going to repeat the wheel if you keep thinking that you're back at square one, as opposed to hindsight, learning from yourself.
Exactly. All traditional methods of alcohol reduction are good. They're good. There's only one downfall, and it's actually not their fault at all. The only downfall of all the traditional methods out there right now is they treat human beings as too shallow.
I was about to say that as if they can't look after themselves.
Yeah, they don't give human beings, every human being, no matter what condition or stage of life they're in, they've still got a functional mind and a functional heart. They're incredibly capable, and they're incredibly deep. And there's so much more to a human being that we can play with and pull on to create a life of freedom and choice. All current systems do not allow for that. What's called ontology. I don't want to get too wild with this, but ontology just means the totality of being, like the total being itself. You got to, traditional systems, traditional methods have a limited ontology. So therefore their process is limited. Tommy and I have a really big, wide ontology, a big understanding of what the capability of a human being is. And we treat every single person like that. And people change when you treat them as deep, intelligent, subtle, potential. People change in that type of soil. They get so nourished because of it.
Well said, man. I don't think that was too deep. I think you've said it before. I think people want complex, and not complex as in confusing and overwhelm. Complex as in deep understanding. That's now that you're saying it, Nat, I'm probably assuming that's why you say people like complex, because we look at them, or specifically as well yourself, you look at them as, no matter where they're at in life, is you are completely deeper, more complex, more passionate, more evolving than you've ever let on. And that's the key, is to bring that out, right?
Yep, exactly right. Again, a failing, not of anyone, but a failing just of evolution. I can't say that. Is that we think we know what an individual mind and heart is. Like, oh yeah, we know what a person is. Let's go from that basis. It's like, no, you don't. we treat the success we're having recently, Tommy, I truly believe is the fact that we're so willing to say we don't know what, we're not going to try and create a closure. Like, we know what you are, we know what a person is. I'm willing to leave that right open and go into the discovery with that person.
How refreshing for both us and members is that.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll just say it with a story. Now, you don't know this. We've had a
No, I don't know anything, Tommy. That's the thing.
No, you don't know this, mate. You're not smart.
You're not.
We've got one of our members that shows up 80% of the time to these live recordings and then watches all of them. In fact, they started the conversation with, Tom, it's really nice to meet you. I'm up to episode 14. I'm just waiting on your next one. I was like, this is great conversation. And I put some time aside to chat to this individual because they wanted to pick my brain. And I shared a couple of things with them and where they were at and what they were experiencing. And at the end of the call, they said, so what do you think? What kind of programs do you think would be beneficial to me? And the end of the conversation went something along the lines of, I don't think any of them would be beneficial. Yeah. And they said, what do you mean? I said, it sounds like you're getting everything you've ever needed out of the podcast series. Not to mention you're probably doing not to mention you're probably doing your own work. And he actually responded with just wholeheartedly, he goes, yeah, to be honest, I think so as well. I don't think I need anything right now. And that was the conversation. Yeah, no, you don't need anything right now. And here's the thing. That person, I didn't say that because that person said I'm sober and I don't drink alcohol, which isn't the case, by the way. The person's drinking alcohol, they're on an alcohol reduction journey. But I think it sums it up pretty well. There's no you need this. How unfortunate it would be if I was sitting there on the end of the phone in an authority position thinking, well, I'm better than this person and I know better and he's not going to make it and he's going to go down a slippery slope of addiction at the moment. So he better come into one of our programs. Instead, you sound like you're good. You sound like you're crushing it. You sound like you can probably take a couple of insights of a couple of 15 to 20 minute podcasts and you just be great. And if anything changes, then's the time to reach out.
Yeah.
We often love, I think, as a culture, because a lot of traditional approaches are very cure based. We kind of often love jamming a cure down someone who's actually needing prevention. You know what I mean? It's yeah, I won't get into it, but very passionate about the topic. Now, any specific strategy or a way that someone like this beautiful person that called me on the weekend, because they'll be listening to this podcast for sure, can practice? And I want to go specific. Let's say we're reducing our alcohol intake. We had, whether it was half a glass of beer or 2 bottles of wine, the individuals is experiencing they're experiencing a level of guilt, annoyance, frustration at themselves. Something in themselves is trying to let them know that something they're doing is not for them, not because anyone told them. And that's what I love about it. Could be half a glass of beer or 2 bottles of wine. Something in them is going. I always say this to people, Nat. I'm like, if you're second guessing your relationship with alcohol, alcohol's not for you. Alcohol is for someone who's not second guessing their relationship with alcohol.
Not second guessing it at all. Yeah.
That's all that you need to know, because people go, am I addicted, Tom? Like, what do you think? Do I have an addiction? I don't know if I need help. I just always say, are you second guessing your relationship with alcohol? Then you're after some support. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, perfect.
So if someone's waking up on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, they're feeling a bit of guilt, a bit of annoyance, as opposed to getting straight into the sabotage, like, oh, I did it again, which is going to increase by 80% the chance of drinking that day. How can they sit? Is there any kind of questions they can ask themselves? I know you've asked a couple of our group members recently, some pretty cool ones, just to sit in a bit of observation and awareness before they get into the pity party and the beat up stage.
Absolutely. My favorite one, it's really got to do with really reframing guilt. And I don't use many reframes. I just think because it can get a bit messy. But this one's a belter. I like to work with people when they're experiencing guilt in the following way. You've got 2 options with guilt. Feel guilty for doing something in the past. I've done something in the past that I felt was wrong, or I knew I didn't want to, but I got caught up or whatever. That'll prove correct. That all checks out. There's another way to look at guilt that also checks out, which is the following. I feel guilty because there's a version of me I love. There's a version of me I can actually see, and I've acted against that. And that will also check out every single time you feel guilty. You only feel guilty because you actually know who you want to be. You know how you want life to be. You know what you want to experience, and you chose against that.
That's an interesting one. So if someone's, because that took me back to years ago when I was doing it like so often, like 6 out of 7 days of the week, it was, I used to think the same. I used to think, oh, I'm so annoyed that I did that last night. But what I'm really hearing from you is, I'm so annoyed that I'm currently not the person I want to be because I feel this way.
And it shows up as guilt. It shows up as guilt. You actually know, most people know how they want to act and who they want to be because they have a conscience. You wouldn't have a conscience if you didn't have an ideal self.
Oh God, that's a good way to wrap it up. You wouldn't have a conscience if you didn't have
an ideal self.
It's unavoidable, isn't it, when you look at it this way? That
if you have a conscience, you know what you want. And so you can either go, oh, I'm this same person that will never change making wrong decisions, or I'm on a path striving and I've just chosen something off the path.
So good. Now,
it's nice.
It's absolutely beautiful. I kind of want to like put a pin in it there and also plug. This is perfect. If you're listening to this, whether it's live or a few weeks down the track, and you're thinking, I really want to break this strategy, I would love to start listening to my internal moral compass and learning to trust and follow the part of me that's letting me know what not to do in life so I can continue doing what I do want to do. Send us an email at info@drinklessfeelfresh.com and just say, Nat, Tommy, when's the next 30-day detox? And I'm sure there's going to be one just around the corner whenever it is that you send us an email, if it's within 2023.
Keen for everyone to get on board. I want to meet everyone.
Keen to everybody. Come on board. We are committed. Nat, I don't know if you saw the post I put up yesterday, but I did share a bit on your behalf too. Nat and I are absolutely well and truly committed and keen to kick this problem regarding overconsumption of alcohol right to the curb. And I trust this podcast episode was a real insight into the depth that we're prepared to go. You can go and join a habit changing program anywhere. You can do Dry July or Sober October. That's fantastic. Like that is they're incredible programs. Or you can join a community of individuals who are really learning to trust their moral guiding compass, which looks like long-term alcohol reduction. And if anyone's listening, the little kicker about that is every now and then you're allowed to slip up and it ain't a big issue. Oh, Nat, thanks for the podcast this morning, mate. I wish I was where you're at right now. It looks delicious. I hope you go.
Oh, it's awesome. I'm getting blasted by the sun. So good.
Beautiful. Looking forward to receiving a couple of emails regarding 30-day detox challenge. Shout out. We'll make sure you set up for success for the next one. And for those that are listening that are doing the detox, we'll see you tonight, 6:30 p.m. in the Drink Less Feel Fresh members community. We're about to kick it.
Kane.
Here's the Drinking Less and Feeling Fresh. See you next week. Same time, same place. Bye.